I go into the parking garage and I'm looking around, and they got big, thick beams down there, metal beams down there. And I'm thinking, okay. And so I look for the doors, the side doors, because staff always smoke outside. They always smoke outside. So I go through and I find a chair. I have a chair. I walk around. I found a beam. So now I've got the means, the place, the plan, and I'm depressed as anything. Instantly depressed as anything. I went back to my room. I sat down, I poured a glass of Jack Daniels. And I started writing a note.
San Diego 911 emergency. You need to come right away. There's a man with a gun and it's loaded. Receiving emergency signal from 4 George 1141. We've got a white female down. We need paramedics code please. All available units roll code that
way. Welcome to the De-Escalation Conversations podcast. I'm here today with a friend of mine who I just absolutely love and respect. His name is Leo Petrilli. And Leo was trapped in addiction for over 4 decades. And he's been substance-free since 2011, which is, wow, it's amazing. He just retired from working in the trenches at an addiction recovery home where he went for his own recovery. Today, he's a virtual train-the-trainer for the first responder program with the Addictions Academy. And he's also a virtual personal growth coach with the Wellness Coach organization. He's a nationally and internationally certified recovery coach and intervention professional. He attends several first responder virtual recovery meetings and is a volunteer with Boots on the Ground in Ontario, Canada. He likes watching good movies, TV shows that make him laugh, and sporting events. Helping others keeps him sober too. So, Leo, welcome to the show.
It's my absolute honor to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm honored to have your time, and I know that our listeners are going to gain a lot out of this. So let's start with this. At De-Escalation Conversations, when we talk about de-escalation, a lot of people will ask, what do you mean by de-escalation? And one of our flagship courses is how to calm an angry person in 90 seconds or less. So when we talk about de-escalation, what we're talking about is how do you remove some of the heat from the emotional fire that's going on? And you might not be able to eliminate all of it because people are in an emotional crisis, but can you reduce it enough to where that person can shift their brain into executive state and be able to problem solve and be creative and have empathy for other people and begin to have a rational conversation? So working kind of with that definition of de-escalation, I want to kick this off by saying that there's a lot of people experience situations requiring de-escalation. And Leo, you have some really effective tools in these type of situations. And you've said that in conversations I've had with you before now, you've said that one-on-ones are huge. Tell me a little bit more about that.
I just retired from working in that recovery home, and I was there for 8 years. And in a one-on-one setting with an individual, you and I, we talk about our addictions. I talk about mine. Maybe you talk about yours. Most people, when they get to a recovery home, they're like, what the heck is going on? My world is over. I'm caught. What do I do? They're scared. There's natural fear. What I do in a one-on-one, and especially in a group, is I will share my own journey, my own past. My own past includes, there's something that the CDC put together called Adverse Childhood Experiences. They did a study in 1998 where they asked 15,000 employees at Kaiser Permanente, these 10 traumas in your childhood, 10. Including sexual assault, verbal, physical, emotional, spiritual. The scientists say that if you score 4 out of 10, chances are pretty good you're going to be an alcoholic or an addict. My score was 8 out of 10.
Wow.
My sexual abuse occurred outside of the home. I got hurt by I got raped by 2 men, and I never dealt with it. So long-term addiction. So in the circle, everybody's got stuff. Everybody's got their own stuff, different stuff. A parent did it to them, something they did to others. Everybody's got stuff. What I do is I share my stuff. I will openly tell them, and I'll cry, and I'll totally make myself vulnerable to people in order to help them cry, not just for me, but for themselves. If they can cry for me, they can cry for themselves. If they can feel for me, they can feel for themselves. They're in there somewhere. Hey, Carrie, they're in there somewhere, and I want to get to them. And by making myself vulnerable, I think that really helps out a lot. That was taught to me.
That's awesome that you have that. That's one of your techniques. You have other things that you do, tools that you use for de-escalation. One example, and you kind of touching on what you just said about if you can cry for others, you can cry for yourself. When you're holding a group discussion, you're able to make everyone feel safe. And you said, and this was a great quote from you, so they can at least listen, even if they're not ready to share yet. So can you share a little bit more with us about how you make people feel safe besides you just being vulnerable, or is that the key tool?
Trust. We don't trust nobody. Can't trust. That was built out of my life a long, long time ago. So hearing from somebody else, maybe I can say their words for them. Maybe I can help them get to a place inside their head and their heart. Like the distance between the head and the heart, it's only a foot, right? But for people like me, it's 20 miles. They never talk, right? This is shut. You have to open this up. Once this opens up and you can let all that pus out, it allows for healing and goodness to go in and actual love, self-respect, and everything. And so you got to get that out. And it takes time. Like some people don't do it in a week. Some people don't do it in a month. Part of our therapy is you have to write inventories of what was done to us or what we had done to others, and they're painful. And you get your book to write probably after about 5 or 6 weeks, depending where you are in your program. And that's an important part of recovery, because on that paper, there's your tears and your fears, and you put them down and you cry and you weep. And I was taught to go back and cry for my young self that happened, and I had to give him an ability to come on and say, okay, I hear you, I see you, I'm with you now. You're safe. You're not in the past. You could talk about this, get it out, and it's not an ability that I have. It's ability that, God kind of sent it to me, man. It's what I do. It's the wheelhouse that I'm good at. There's some things I'm not good at. You saw that in LA. There's some things that I'm not good at, but there's some things that I am good at.
Yeah. One of our core foundational principles at IDEA, the International De-Escalation Association, is how your brain can only be in one of 2 states, executive state and survival state. And what you just described by talking to yourself and making sure that your brain knows that you're safe is exactly one of the tools to be able to shift your brain out of survival state into executive state, where you can have that processing occur. Because when you're in survival state, your brain's locked up. You're in fight, flight, or freeze. And you're not able to access all of the parts of your brain. In fact, the thinking part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, is shut off when you're in survival state. So what you're describing is exactly one of the techniques that we teach, which is how do you get out of survival state into executive state? So that's pretty cool. Now, you tend to be pretty direct when you're helping someone get to their truths. How do you do that and establish trust all at the same time? Because that's a lot to be direct with someone without offending them.
It changes for every person that I'm talking to. I don't want to let, I'm going to say it to you, I don't want to let you get into a pity party. I don't want to let you get into a drunk-a-log about, how much you drank and all this other stuff. If you get into that, we're spinning our wheels and wasting our time. That's not what I'm here. One of the phrases for your audience that I like to share is, I know when I'm talking to the person and when I'm talking to the disease. And when I'm talking to the disease, I got no time for that. Get it out, blurt it out, but once it's done, it's done. I got to put a period on that. That moves off to the side. Now let's talk about why we're in this room and if we can get some help, if I can help you with some stuff. And I say it just like that. I'll say it just like that. I will honor what they're saying to me. How you feel is how you feel, and even if it's not right, how you feel is how you feel. I have to honor that. And once it's gone, once I remove it, we can talk about stuff.
That's cool. You have another phrase, which is awesome since your first name is Leo. You got a Leo it. Tell us what Leo stands for. It's an acronym that you came up with.
You have to let everything out. All the stuff all the pus, all the hate, all the fear, all the guilt, all the shame. You have to find a way to let that out. Once it's out, this is open. Once this is open, this can talk to this. At work, when I was at work, they used to hate this all the time because one of the questions they would ask me is, okay, where's the disease? Is your disease in your head or in your heart? And they all said it's in the head. And I said, I disagree. It's in the heart. Because this can tell this what to think, but this can't tell this what to feel. So to me, it's in here. Once you can heal this, everything works.
It's interesting that you're talking about an emotional wound or a series of emotional wounds in a physical sense. Before I became a cop, I was an emergency room technician. I still am an EMT, but I was an ER tech. And we used to have people come in that had these wounds that had gotten infected. And the doctors used to lance them open and literally get the pus out exactly in a physical form, just the same way that you're talking about it in an emotional form. And for that wound to heal, that was the process that had to happen to be able to get the infectious part of the wound out of the body so that healing could take place. So I love your analogy of lancing the heart open and letting the pus out, because and in a physical sense, that's exactly how you heal a wound. And you're drawing a perfect analogy that I think anybody can understand to healing those emotional wounds that allow you to then be able to become a better person.
I still have scars inside and out. I still have them. They just don't hurt so much, and those scars keep me sober. And those are the scars that I show to the people that I'm talking to. Look at, this is what I got for you, man. I'm not here to hurt you. I don't know you. I don't know you. We're just in this circle right now, in this meeting right now, Yeah. And that's a really good analogy that you made about, getting the pus out, because that's what it is. Because I have to get out all that. And the pus is full of guilt, shame, hatred, fear. I used to say I was angry all the time. My old job, I worked on the border. I worked 5 minutes from the murder capital of the world, downtown Detroit, for 15 years, and I worked steady midnight so I could get into altercations. And I'm not a tough man, but I'm not a tough man. But I used to, because I needed that. I used to say I was angry all the time. Carrie, I'm afraid. Truth is, I'm afraid. I'm afraid of everything. And most first responders, they can say they're angry all they want. A lot of it is fear. A lot of us grab badge. A lot of us become EMTs. A lot of us go into the military because, what happened to me, that was never going to happen to me again. And that was never going to happen to anybody else again on my watch.
Yeah. And again, one of our foundational concepts is the root of all conflict is fear. And when you approach it that way, fear being the root of all conflict, whenever you see conflict and you begin immediately to start looking for the fear, that does a couple of things. First of all, it shifts your brain into executive state from survival state because you get curious. You can't be curious and be in survival state at the same time. That's the first part of that. And the second thing is it automatically tends to make you compassionate, and you can't be in compassion and in survival state at the same time. So it's a double whammy there of curiosity and compassion, because when you start looking for where is the fear coming from that's creating this conflict, and we see that it's fear that's generating these negative emotions, this anger and frustration and overwhelm and all these things that people present with. But when we look for the fear underneath it, we can begin to have compassion for that person, because who would want to live with that level of fear that makes you angry and makes you frustrated? And you can do that for yourself too. It's a great tool to use. So
that's the caveat behind what I do. You want me to be sober. You want me to recognize my fear. You want me to deal with that crap in front of a group of strangers. Forget that. That's why I get drunk and high. I ain't dealing with all that. That's why I get drunk and high. And now you take away my coping mechanism and you want me to deal with my feelings? You want me to get that out? Are you kidding? Scary, 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 scary stuff.
Yeah. So more fear, more conflict.
Yes, sir.
Now, I'm going to shift gears just a little bit, because the title underneath your name, people have seen it a couple times already. And there's probably, if you're watching this on the video side of things, you're not just listening to the audio part, underneath your name is your title, former chaos magician. Tell me the background to that.
I was probably a full-blown alcoholic by the time I was 21. Regularly drinking at least like a 26-ounce bottle of vodka a day at 21, every day. Went to school, got a degree, applied for a law enforcement job at the border here in Canada, got that, aced that while I was drinking. Became a canine while I was drinking. Got married, absolutely destroyed a wonderful woman, really nice woman, and my kids, they're still hurting from what happened from me, But I had to juggle all that, a job, marriage, a family, responsibilities, and full-time alcoholic at the same time. So I became a chaos magician. I could make magic out of nothing. I knew where every liquor store was. I knew when the banks opened. I knew how much money I had. I knew how much booze I had. I knew the windows that I had to drink. I knew the windows that I had to be sober so I wouldn't be caught by my wife. I knew after I got divorced in 94, 97, I got divorced within 7-8 years. Then I had to hide it from work. I used to say like working out became part of my addiction. I would go to the gym for a couple hours to sweat all the booze and everything out of me. So when I went to work, people, oh, Leo, you look so tired. Oh, I got up early, man. Went to the gym for 3 hours. It became part of my life. Working out became part of my life. So everything was all about me drinking. And then in the last 4 or 5 years, it wasn't enough. A 40 of vodka wasn't enough. I conned my psychiatrist into giving me a script for Xanax. So I started abusing a Xanax with a 40 as well. And it was the perfect roofie. It did the job, absolutely did the job, And then I would plan all my drinking. And the audience members, if you're struggling, 1 in 5 of us has this. So I'm probably talking to some of you folks as well. I would plan everything around me getting drunk or high. I would do that, and as soon as I could, I would get it. Now I have to also plan into my recovery time, so I wouldn't get caught. We are tremendous liars. We have to be. I had to be, in order to try to keep that life of mine that I had going on. Deceitful, and coming out of that now, on this side, if you look at it, Gary, I've got over half a century on both sides of this disease. I'm going to tell you that makes me a subject matter expert in this area. I'm going to suggest that at least. And a word's a magician. Now I just talk about the tricks that I did.
Wow, what a great analogy. That's a lot to juggle, a lot to keep track of, and the facade that people maintain sometimes can be overwhelming to be able to maintain that, and yet we feel that we have to, and sometimes you do have to. Interesting. All right, so I'm going to shift gears again. This is going to seem like maybe a tough question to our listeners, but I know you're fully prepared for this question. Why are you sober?
My journey has to be spiritual. I'm not saying, you say 20 Hail Marys and you're sober. That's not what I'm saying. But everything that's happened to me, both good and bad, has been for a purpose. And I don't know what that is yet. I'm sober because the last day I drank and took a Xanax as well, I fell through a glass table at home in my apartment. I fell through a glass table. And I ended up in a hospital, and they kept me in like a medically induced coma for at least a couple of weeks so my brain could relax, And when I was lucid, there was a doctor standing there by the side of my bed, and he said, he was holding a little plastic bag, and he said, I got 2 pieces of glass. They weren't in your eye, but they were in your eyeball here. He said, I'm going to come back and talk to you tomorrow. And he did the next day. And he said to me, your enzyme levels are screaming. You don't have cirrhosis yet, but you're right there, And because I fell through a glass table, I had to go into the MRI, into the can. I had to get brain scans, pop, 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 pop. And so I met with a neurologist, and this guy, he was a good man. He was a good doctor, but he was angry with me. He was angry with me for what I've done with myself. And he said to me, "How old are you?" And I said, "I'm 52 at the time." He said, "Your brain's half the size it should be." And I said, "Is it because I'm an alcoholic?" And he goes, "Yep." And he says, I said, if I quit drinking, will it get any better? And he goes, "No." And I got mad at him. I said, "What do you mean? What do you mean?" He says, "You keep going the way you're going. You got 6 months, maybe a year, you're done." So I got 2 doctors telling me I'm done. You know what I mean? I'm caught at work. Everybody knew. My boss knew. They came to the hospital. He said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I need help. I got to go to the hospital." He says, "You go to the hospital. Your job will be here and you get back. Just go to detox, go to a program, go get sober. Don't worry about your job. We'll keep it for." And they did for 9 days, So the only reason I'm here, Care, is I got caught. And, God gave me a second chance. He gave me another chance to do this, And I become very good at this. I'm a very good recovery coach. I'm a very good intervention professional. My certifications are from the Addictions Academy, man. Dr. Kaliastas is a brilliant professional lady, man. She knows her stuff like nobody else's. And to get certifications from them is something, and I've been blessed with a job from her that I start probably in April. I'll start doing my first classes with her. It's all, like I said, I'm on a spiritual journey. This is God's plan. I mean, this is what I'm good at, and in LA, you saw what I wasn't good at. but I had to go see that door. I'm not good in crisis, but I'm solid in peer support. Solid.
Very cool. So here's another question that is, again, I know you're prepared for, and our listeners, hang with me for asking this, but I'm asking it for a particular reason. Leo, why should I trust you?
I've been down some paths that I'm sure you might have. January 25th, 2018 was a very, very bad day for me. A very, very bad day for me. And that was a week before I met you in LA, Kara. That was a week before, right? So I was carrying that. I can tell you about that if you want.
I'd be honored.
I was in New Orleans, and I had given a talk at the American Correctional Association conference, and I had probably, 400 corrections officers and brass in the room with me, and it went really well. You know what I mean? It went really well. God's given me an ability to speak and share. And so the next day, I was just a tourist in New Orleans. I fly out the day after that, so I got a day to kill. So about a mile from my house was a place called Café Du Monde. I don't know if you've ever been in New Orleans. Café Du Monde, they have wonderful chocolate, what do they call this? Hot chocolate. Cafe au lait is what cafe au lait, and they have wonderful beignets that they make right there. Sugar, just wonderful, hot. So I'm being a tourist, I'm having that. And then I got a muffalata sandwich. A muffalata sandwich is I'm an Italian, as you can tell by this nose that I carry and my name that I have. Muffalata sandwich is a beautiful sandwich. It's a French sandwich. It's got, big, thick French bread, and it's got wonderful cheeses and wonderful salamis and mortadellas and capicolos and olives. And they put the sandwich together, and you carry it around for like an hour or two, and all the flavors meld, and then it becomes something special, So I'm just being a tourist, and they got a beautiful park down there. And I'm walking around down the park, and there's this little cement bridge, and I go up the cement bridge and I look down. And I see a man, and he's urinating on a wall. And I just focus on him. And I watch him stagger over to the ground. And he falls face first into the grass. And I became so depressed. That's you. That's how I passed out all the time. That's you. All this stuff, it's all a lie. That's all you're ever going to be. So I got depressed as anything, eh? So I started crying, and I just wandered aimlessly back towards my hotel. And they have a beautiful church down there. And there's homeless along the way that I'm walking through. They have a beautiful church down there. I think it's called St. Michael's. And so I went into this church, and I sat. And I waited, I waited, and while I was there, I made a plan. Where am I going to get a gun in New Orleans? But I made a plan, And so I left, and I got a bottle of Jack Daniels. And I went back up to my hotel room, and I put the sandwich and the bottle down, and then went down to the desk. And I went by the desk, and there was a young couple there. They looked like they were going to be a couple. Hey, Mr. Petrilli, how you doing? I said, I'm doing good. Listen, I got to go back to the conference room. I think I forgot my cell phone up there. All right, take care. Right? So I take the escalator up. I go, and I've got my conference bag with me, and I grab a very thick extension cord. And I put it in the bag, and I go back down, and I put it in my room, and I go into the parking garage, and I'm looking around, and they got big, thick beams down there, metal beams down there, and I'm thinking, okay. And so I look for the doors, the side doors, because staff always smoke outside. They always smoke outside. So I go through, and I find a chair. I have a chair. I walk around. I found a beam. So now I've got the means, the place, the plan, and I'm depressed as anything. Instantly depressed as anything, I went back to my room. I sat down. I poured a glass of Jack Daniels. And I started writing a note. I wrote, "I'm sorry. I was so depressed. Calm as anything. Calm as anything, because it's the right thing to do. My whole life, Carrie, has been, if you knew me, you would hate me too. That's been my whole life, how I felt about myself. So, I looked at that sandwich and I said, you know what? Got to have a last meal. So I took a bite of the sandwich. It was a damn good sandwich. The more I ate, the better I felt. I poured the glass of Jack in the sink. I brought the bottle out, the ice machine outside in the hall. If I drank that day, I wouldn't be here right now. I'll tell you that. I wouldn't be here right now. I'll tell you that, So what are the tools that I use to be sober? I think everything I've shared to you is tools that have been given to me, and it's been my journey. So that's why I do what I do. Long-winded answer, but I hope it helps.
I'll talk in a future episode about my brush with suicide and how I got to that dark spot in my life. I'll just say right now that I'm grateful for you sharing what you just shared. Not just for being vulnerable, but letting all of us know. We know that in the first responder community that suicides are hugely prevalent and underreported. And the reality is, it doesn't matter how good things can seem on the outside. I'm willing to bet that out of those 400 or 500 people that heard you talk that day, that they never suspected that you were going down that dark hole. And as we ourselves can experience those demons hooking onto us, realizing that other people can as well. And the message being that if you, one of our listeners, are going through something like that, there's tons of resources available. There's tons of people who want to be able to help you. Cop Line, which I'll put the number in our show notes. And we're going to have people in future episodes from Cop Line that we're going to interview. That's just one resource. You found a way to shift out of that dark spot through a sandwich. And there's so many good things that you Leo bring to this world. Even though there are some things that, as you said, that if I knew you, I'd hate you, but I know you today, and I love you like a brother. You're an amazing individual. You're a man with such a good heart. And I am glad that you're here. And thank you for sharing your past. Thank you for sharing what got you through stuff. Thank you for sharing the tools that you use to help other people, to calm people down when they're in crisis. And gosh, I couldn't have asked for anything more than to have a chat with you today, and for our listeners to be able to get out of your story whatever they can get. And I have no doubt that at the right time, somebody's going to listen to you talk and share and gain tons of value from that. So thank you, Leo.
Thank you for all those kind words. Thank you for, the love that you've given to me. You don't know who I am, but, I feel really close to you as a person too. And you know what? Sobriety's possible. We got to unpack our stuff. We got to get it out, and once it's out, you don't have to pick it up, and helping others keeps me okay. And, it ain't easy being a chaos magician, man. It ain't easy being a chaos magician. Sometimes, though, it's nice sitting in the audience, just having to sit in the audience sometimes. So thank you. This was my honor.
So for our listeners, if you want to keep in touch with Leo, we're going to keep his contact information available to you. All you have to do is send us an email at team@theidea.world, and we'll connect you with Leo. We'll do it that way to protect his personal contact information. But just know that Leo is open to you connecting with him if you'd like to send him just a word of thanks for being on the show, word of encouragement, or any questions that you have. He's, like I said, he's a man with a huge heart, and he's in it to help other people who have experienced the same or similar things that he has. So again, shoot us an email, team@theidea.world. Our phone number is in the show notes. And you can also keep in mind, if you want to reach out to Cupline directly, that information is in our show notes as well. Leo, before we go, do you have any last parting thoughts or words that you want to share?
Just it's possible, man. Not being a prisoner to your past is possible. A lot of people on the job have, direct trauma that's being done to them every day, vicarious trauma that they see in the job every day, being able to put that off to the side if you need help. You're not alone. There's so many peer support. Peer support does not get enough momentum behind it, especially when you got some really good peers that can share their stuff and help others, And thank you for what you do, man. I think it's pretty cool, and thank you for this opportunity for me to tell my story.
You bet, Leo. Thanks for being here, and for our listeners, thanks for listening to the De-Escalation Conversations podcast. We'll look forward to our next episode. For now, as always, stay safe.